Hey YouTube, Shukun here with a review of the S.H.Figuarts and Figuarts ZERO of Vasco and Sally from Kazoku Sentai Gokaiger. These were a Tamashii Web exclusive release, so you won't find these at most normal stores, but you can find them on the aftermarket at Yahoo Japan Auctions or Mandrake and such like that. So, most subgroups termed him as Basco instead of Vasco, since there's typically a B in romanization as opposed to a V, even though they create the same sound in Japanese, but that's a long linguistics story there. But they decided to romanize it as Vasco. His namesake is Vasco da Gama, so they just kind of stuck with the V instead of the B. I read a lot of things about it being like a pun off Basco, like Tabasco sauce, but I don't think that's legit. But anyway, so here we have Vasco and Sally. Vasco being a Figuarts, and Sally being a Figuarts ZERO. So Sally can't move, but that's fine. One of the few Figuarts releases that does not have a windowed box. That's actually just a normal size Figuart. Most of the time they are the ones that are like huge, like Genocider and stuff. So Vasco gets a little bit of originality here. So Figuarts ZERO, Figuarts, all that cool stuff. So very original box. Really wish it was chromed out some, but what can you do? Push that back here, and here we have Vasco, otherwise known as Basco, otherwise known as that guy from Gokaiger. So he was basically kind of the main villain for Gokaiger. Granted, you'd have the Zangyak, but in terms of an actual antagonist, you had Vasco, and you were happy with it. This is his monster form, and it is very awesome. It reminds me a lot of Nasca in terms of posability and just general, not design, but the way that the figure feels. So you've got these big shoulder pads, but they're on the hinge, so they don't really get conflicted with anything. They can move outwards, but they get caught on these a lot. So if you have it down, then you don't have to worry about it. But really cool skull effects right there. So sculpt-wise, this is an absolutely gorgeous figure. Not the best villain we've ever had. You have his logo back here, which is really cool. Not the best villain figure we've ever had. I think probably the Zodiarts take the cake for that, just by being really great sculpts. Or the Greeds. Ankh in general is a very nice mold. But regardless, the villains always get some really nice molding. I feel like there's a little bit of detail left out, but the Sentai villains are always a little bit more kind of, not plain, but flatter in terms of design. So everything should be okay. Articulation-wise, down in the hips, you do have the rotation there and just a normal Figuartness. However, this floofy butt, like, blanket thing, it's kind of like a loincloth, but for the butt, it completely kills all backwards leg articulation whatsoever. So that's about as far back as you can get, which is kind of disappointing. Granted, you're probably not going to put him in poses where he needs to do that, so it's not a huge deal, but it's something to nitpick about regardless. And it's really hard to get his chest lined up. There's another nitpick. But paint-wise, absolutely gorgeous. The shoulders do droop a little bit, so make sure you push them up as far as they go. And I feel the collar up here and the floofy butt carpet would have benefited from a black wash or something, so you might want to manually do that. I think it'll make the sculpted details here pop a little bit better. But outside of that, very cool. I love his head sculpt. Very menacing and still very piratey, and I think that's really neat. These kind of end up looking like really long hair, which is kind of weird, but still very cool and a very great design. These do not come out, even though it kind of feels like they could be sword handles. They're not. They're just decoration. But really cool release. And of course, he's bundled with his trusty monkey, Sally, who I loved near and dear to my heart. Sally is a Figuarts ZERO, meaning Sally does not move. While they could have implemented some arm rotation, they didn't. She's a brick. Kind of like the Kurokos that came with the Shinkenders. For those of you that are not familiar with Figuarts Zeros, they're basically highly detailed statues. And the highly detailed part can be argued sometimes, I think, with these. But still really cool. You got the butt right here, because Sally's like a baboon, and baboons have butts and stuff. Anyway, so very cool. The derpy grin that Sally always had throughout the beginning of the show. Sally was a really interesting character that ended up actually becoming like one of my favorite characters in a sense. Just because the emotional level with Sally, I think, was really cool. So those of you who've seen the show know what I'm talking about. Sally's main feature is the fact that her head pops off. That's a feature. She is included with the necklace. That is very important in the show. So you can put that on and then put the head back on. So now Sally's wearing the necklace, which isn't a good thing. But we'll just leave the necklace on Sally for now. So she's not in any danger yet. But no stage or anything like that. Just basically a brick that comes with Vasco. So she's basically a glorified accessory. But a very cool glorified accessory, nonetheless. So for accessories, Vasco comes with the Rapparatta, or something along the lines of that. His trumpet that he could use to steal the grand powers of various Sentai. He can also use it to control and summon Rangers by plugging in the Ranger keys into these 5 slots. The slots are closed, so you can't get any of the Ranger keys that came with the Gokaigers or anything in there. So you're stuck with it like this. But still, a cool fact that it was included. The Cariblaster and the Cariblade, or Cariblade, depending on how you want to turn that into an R or an L. Cariblade, very cool. You can kind of see where they're very, very similar in style, so they make a great combination. Then I drop one. As normal with Figuart weapons, just kind of a hard plastic. A little bit brittle, so don't be too crazy with it. But you have these. And then, of course, it comes with his Mobirate. Very thin Mobirate. Can you imagine if the Mobirate was actually that small? But his doesn't use Ranger keys, so I guess it's allowed to be that small. Even though it wasn't in the show, but closes and opens. Very cool, and it's got his logo on it, which is very cool. I kind of wish we would have got a toy of Basco's Mobirate, just because I really like the way it looks, but yeah. And then we have 10 additional hands for various weapon holdings, various poses. A couple relaxed hands, a couple posy hands. Kind of a splayed open attack sort of hand. And these are the more splayed open hands. Splayed open relaxed hands, what I meant to say, but that came out instead. I want him to rival Gokaiger Red in my display, so I'm going to have him wielding both of the Cariblade and Cariblaster weapons. And then Sally's just going to hang out here with the necklace because her days are numbered. So very, very cool release. If you're a fan of Gokaiger, definitely do not pass this release up. He is a little bit harder to find on the aftermarket than most of the other Gokaiger releases, being the fact that he was A, exclusive, and B, a very popular character, packaged with another popular character, at least in my opinion. So very cool. Plus, it's rare that we get villains, even though we're getting a lot nowadays. So he's a more sought-after release than some of the other Gokaigers. But very cool, especially if you have Gokaiger Red, which I know a lot of people do. He makes a great foil to Gokaiger Red in a display. So that's always a thing to look forward to. It was about a little under 6,000 yen for the set of a Figuart and a Figuarts ZERO, so that is actually a very good price. His accessory count didn't take a hit, even though he included Sally. And Sally even got her necklace, so she got an accessory too. So you get both weapons, you get the trumpet, which is basically a must-have for Vasco, even though he didn't really use the trumpet all that much when he was in monster form, if at all. Plus 10 hands, so good hand count, the Mobirates, the trumpet, weapons. Like I said, the accessory count really did not take a hit at all. Sculpt is great, paint is great. I think certain areas would have benefited from a black wash, but Figuarts don't do black washes too often, so I'm not really all that surprised. Sally would have also benefited from a black wash. Figuarts Zeros are usually a really good sculpt that are usually get ruined by a very flat paint job. Not sure what their deal is with Figuarts Zeros, but that's just what you get. Regardless, if you can find the set for about 5,000 yen or under, definitely pick it up. Like I said, it retailed for about 6,000. So meaning when you factor in like a middleman fee, about 7,000 is probably about what I paid for this. So if you can find it any cheaper than that, definitely pick it up. Any higher than that, you might want to think. It all depends on how much you like Vasco, how much you like Sally, and how much you like Gokaiger in general. But really cool release with very little flaws. The only thing I can really nitpick about now is the midriff section being kind of small compared to the waist and the chest, but that seems to be a trend in Figuarts. I'm looking at you, wizard. But anyway, very cool and definitely recommended. You can check out shukenshobei.com for latest updates on my reviews and hauls, and of course check out Riders, Rangers, and Rambles, the podcast bringing the latest token news in the greatest way possible. And of course you can buy Figuarts and more at cstoysjapan.com. So take care and have a great one. Bye.